The next presenter will be Alex Price from BSI, the Standards Development. Alex Price will describe BSI's intention of developing a standards program supported by the Center for Connected and Autonomous Vehicles. Over to you,
sir. Thank you. I'm also quite conscious I'm one of two presenters that are standing between myself and lunch, so I'll try and get through all my slides in the time available. Just to do the corporate and governance side of BSI, I'm standards. I'm not certification or product certification, so they are colleagues that are in a completely different separate part of the company for obvious reasons. We can't be seen to be developing standards and run lucrative certification schemes from them. So I am purely standards. They sit within another area and we have strong governance. So whatever we develop goes out to the public domain, and any other certification I see out there, LRQA, the main one, which register can all jump on and start running that certification with BSI as a group. Would have to be one of those. So just to put it there, we also offer training and advisory services as well in the area, and I can certainly pick up on that later on. We're also a Royal Charter company. Give you a brief history. We started in 1901 standardising train tracks, so we've been around for a few years. I haven't been around that long, but nearly 19 years in BSI, so enough to be pretty much institutionalised now. So, often get asked, when is the right time to standardise? You know, is the market already established? Is your technology proven? The answer, there isn't a right time. It is a balance. It's a fine balance between standardising with having enough research to actually justify the standardisation to be put into a standard, and also standards can be used to open up markets. There can be standards out there that are, a shot in the dark and a best attempt at best practice. Right? So it is a balance, and we work with organisations to try and get this balance through. So where do we work? And I'm not going to stand here and say British standards is the de facto and everything should be British standards. There's a number of agencies out there, international standards development organisations, which are producing standards in different areas. We predominantly work within CEN and ISO. So they're both, one of them is an international standards body, the other one is a European standards body. I'm quite happy to answer questions on Brexit, but I think everyone is completely frustrated by the whole situation. So I'm happy to take that one offline. Needless to say, regardless of your view on Brexit, British standards beyond Brexit is that we are still continuing working in European standards. There is no point throwing out nearly 35 years of development standards, because we are already trading to these standards. It's ridiculous. Across all sectors, that is the number one thing that's come back to us, whether it's aerospace, construction, medical devices, they're all quite on board with us continuing within CEN. So as a result, a lot of CEN standards are called up in directives. That's another question on what happens with directives moving forward and whether they're taken as UK statutes. So this is a bit wider question that we are being involved in. We are discussing this with government and have done ever since the Brexit close. And as I said, I'm quite happy to take questions offline with regards to this. So, how do we produce standards? We don't produce them. We don't sit in darkened rooms thinking, you know what, we need a standard in this area. We need a standard for connected and autonomous or connected and automated vehicles. We wait for the industry regulators and other bodies to come to us. And there is a hierarchy of what we consider a hierarchy of standards. So the further up the pyramid, it is slightly sort of chopped off the top of the pyramid, you get to international standards, where obviously there's a lot more consensus and a lot more arguments goes on. So our control going up the tree gets less, but also you're then talking about standards that are being set by member countries across the globe. As you work down, we work, obviously, I've mentioned European and regional standards in the ends. We still have a very small numbers of British standards. We have played by the rules of the free market for many years, and any European standard that's been adopted by BSI, we have withdrawn British standards. You then go down to sponsored standards and BSI passes, and also you get asked to look at private and consortium-based standards. So, a very brief, and I'll apologise if I'm preaching to the converted, and there's those of you that have been involved heavily in standards. They come in a number of guides, specifications, code of practice, guides, test methods, and personal favourite, terminology. Anybody usually involved in trying to define terms within a group or a committee, I feel your pain. It is probably the most arduous task ever, but it underpins everything else, because if people are not speaking the same terms, then everything else above that is completely pointless. So even though I just, in regard to terminology, it is vital that we have clear terms and definitions. We publish all terminology, all the international terminology is freely available out there, and it can be accessed and used. So we produce a number of different areas of standards, and what I'm trying to do today is look to where they fit into our CAV strategy. You might have seen this, or it's now a couple of years out of date, a couple of years in the public domain. BSI was commissioned to put together a UK-based standard strategy, and we went out to the marketplace and asked a number of the operators within the marketplace about CAVs. And one of the biggest things that come back, and that's not because it was BSI asking them, was the lack of agreed consensus standards, which is holding up the industry. So before we actually start the standards program, we actually do go and speak to the industry to see whether there is an issue. So, CAV standards program was set up. As said, there was funding from connected and autonomous vehicles, and they are some of the agencies that we are working with. Those of you who are aware, Meridian is now Zendec, so I apologise for that typo on this slide. But these are the people, and we will also sit on a number of the demonstrator projects out there in an advisory capacity. So, what are the key streams that we've looked at? We have 5 streams. This may not be agreeable to everyone within the autonomous and automated area of vehicles. Work stream 1 is testing and approval. Another massive area for work stream 2 is CAV data, and that's the data coming from the vehicle and the data going to the vehicle. We also have how they're connected. This is a program that's been going on for some time. Security and HMI factors with regard to CAV vehicles. There is different readiness levels with all of these areas. I will take an example from each one of them. Testing and approval, we are working within this. We're currently setting up some PAS work within testing and approval for CAVs. Workstream 2, the data. Anybody who's aware of the extended vehicle concept for remote monitoring your vehicle, there is already standards in the public domain for that. ITS and connected vehicles, there is a number of standards that are going on with DATEX and urban traffic management systems standardised. Security, there's a PAS 1885, which is on cybersecurity for connected and autonomous or automated vehicles, which is currently in the public domain. There is also an ISO and SAE working draft with that as well, and HMI factors. BSI was recently approached, believe it or not, to try and standardise the bongs and things within your vehicle. So it sounds like an interesting area, but therefore there is no actual standard for what constitutes safety chime or ping within your vehicle, and what just constitutes trying to get your attention for something. This has been put into an international working group. How it's received by other countries depends, but it's definitely going to be a lively discussion when the vehicle manufacturers get together and try and make out their bong or ping is the right bong or ping. So, as I said, the program activity, there is 2 passes that are currently kicking off. One of them is in accessing control systems for L4 and L5 autonomous vehicles, and that's L4 and L5 and the SAE standards for levels of autonomy, and assuring safety for autonomous vehicle trials. We've been talking to the insurance agencies out there, and they have quite a big issue with allowing autonomous vehicles within even sort of public or closed environments. It is an interesting aside that there is already standards within heavy machinery. So your road JCBs and Caterpillars already have standards out there for their autonomous workings. If you ever see the presentations from JCB, they are quite open with the fact that sometimes it goes wrong. And when you have 50 tons of metal and a small little JCB tucked underneath it, you can see the levels of autonomy isn't always great, and they're quite open with this. Some of the work that's already there will probably go into, or possibly go into, these standards, because they treat their heavy machinery as to do with the machinery directive. So there's a certain things taken from that, whether that's right or wrong, about warning notes or warning signs and making sure it's closed off in certain apartments. So obviously, let's believe that most of the M6 toll, or the proportion of the M6 toll, was done by autonomous heavy lifting machinery and moving machinery. So it is not an easy landscape. As I said, there is no magic bullet, as somebody was mentioning, magic bullet. If somebody wants to come to BSI and say, we want a standard that's a specification for CAVs, possibly will not have. There's never been a standard for a vehicle. There's not a British standard or an international standard for a vehicle. There is guidelines for every single component that goes out there. It'd be lovely. We can all go home tomorrow and say there's a standard specification for every CAV that's going to be deployed on UK roads. So what we've done is broke it into certain areas. So we have testing and verification to make sure the CAV design is safe. So things to do with ISO 26262, for example. We also have, as I mentioned, communication as well. So communication from vehicles to grid, so V2V, V2I. How that data is actually managed, the road management as well. We have talked to highways agency that sits on a number of BSI committees. One of the things that come back, the earliest venture into CAV work was that if any of the, and I know we have 5AI sitting in the audience as well, if any of the ADAS or camera-based systems want us to change our road signage, there's another thing coming, we don't even have a budget to get rid of potholes. So we have to work with the infrastructure that's already there, whether it's clean, dirty, or broken. This is what we have to work with. As I said, verifying these technologies. So the cybersecurity side of this, we've already published PAS 1885, and a lot of that is now feeding into the ISO and SAE. There's lots of numbers there. PSI does like a number. We do like an acronym as well. I'm not going to go through and put all of them up, but that's just a snapshot of what is happening currently at the moment. So, if we look to final slides with regard to this, how do standards and regulations get together? It's an interesting one, and it's an interesting one since it's pulled up in the CAV area. We have UNECE Work Package WP29. They set out what the vehicle should look like, what it should have. Where standards fit in is that the regulation will say your vehicle must need 4 wheels, or potentially need 4 wheels. The standard will give you the detail of what the 4 wheels are made of, how they're tested, and what they need, how much tread is on their wheels. So that's how they connect in. Believe it or not, there is, I think, on a rough figure, there is there's about 3,500 standards that we've voluntarily pulled up within UNECE rules and regulations. We produced a research project which details them. Not all of them are British standards. There's SAE, ASTM standards that are used within this area. So we look at it this way. Standards are purely voluntary. You can use them or you cannot use them. Regulation is the law, must be complied with, regardless of anything. So the standards that fit into the regulation itself are usually looking at how the actual operation of that standard. And this is where we are trying to get some of the areas that I mentioned before aware of how this makes a vehicle, a CAV vehicle, to be deployed on UK roads. Any questions? I've got to allow a bit more time.
My sincere apologies. If you have a question, please come to the front, ask it in the mic, give a brief description. Brief introduction, please.
Hi, it's Roger Nicol from Bison. Just wondering, the standards here, are they very applicable to road vehicles, or do they have application to, say, smaller scale vehicles? Take a hypothetical example, a robotised shopping trolley that went around Tesco picking up all groceries like that and going ahead with cappuccino. Is there anything that
last mile drop, some additional things that are on
no, something that's within a confined building?
A confined building, okay. I use the example, there is standards being developed for low speed driving, so that would probably come under that area. That is an interesting area, and I'll go back to the terminology. I was made aware of the differences in between driver, pilot, and dispatcher. I didn't quite appreciate this until I was actually informed, and it's come up in this low speed autonomous driving. I can give you the number and the area where it's working. So, dispatcher, as I was led to believe, is somebody that only lets the vehicle go, and if something goes wrong with it, or if somebody jumps out on it, there's a fault, they then go back, assess that fault, and then dispatch it. But apart from that, there's nothing that actually controls it, whereas a pilot is somebody that actually is really a remote piloting it, and a driver who is actually the person behind the wheel. So all this is going on within the sort of low speed area.
I don't think I need this next slide, boys, but Martin Allen, I've worked in functional safety for many years, including a bit of time in functional safety in automotive. Interesting interpretation that standards are voluntary, right, okay, and regulations are law. Right, okay. I've published sort of posts on LinkedIn where I'm the sort of manager of a group on ISO 26262.
Okay.
And one of them is the after effects of actually getting into a court where you haven't actually complied with industry standards, right? Okay. So what would your so for those people who want to make those standards voluntary, what would your suggestion to them be?
Difficult question. BSI, the way that we draft standards is in a voluntary basis, right? How they are used and complied with is then different to how we are technically drafting them. So I use the case, if somebody uses manufacturer then goes out and says, we are conforming to ISO in a contract ISO 1234, that is wrong. If you're not complying to that standard, that's a legal side of it. BSI, not disassociating ourselves from the issue, we say that's between parties, right? We step back from that. I'll use another example. 18 years in BSI, within 6 months, I nearly ended up BSI, and myself in my remit nearly ended up in coroner school. Okay? And it's been a hard lesson, an agency investigation, and I'm quite open with the products. If you have a house and you have a water tank in your loft, that was the product. Right? The product failed, there was 2 fatalities. BSI was then still accountable because we needed to make changes in standards to comply to the agency investigation. So there is that legal side of it, but it's still kept in a voluntary, drafted in a voluntary way. If you ever see a standard that has a warning or caution clause in it, caution means somebody's either lost a finger as a result and know it within an agency or a regulator's investigation. A warning is it's actually been a fatality. So we do, it's loose. We try and keep it as they are voluntary codes. If you don't, as you said, if you don't actually go to them and something goes wrong, you've then got to justify why you haven't followed, some level standard which has been public domain. So, we have to step back. We can't be. We're not regulators. We only develop standards that give guidance to the industry.
But that means that to summarising what we said there, basically you're saying as a business manager, you didn't follow standards, accident happens, someone needs to be killed. The obvious conclusion is you take those standards with the right there, you're criminally negligent. clearly that's what you're leaving yourself open to.
Yes, it is.
So it's common sense. Yes, the standard.
It is. I mean,
For a reason.
yeah.
Unless you're something that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's essentially. I mean, it's also why standards don't should not put anything in about third-party conformity assessment inside the standards. You know, it's up to you whether you want you comply to the standards. You can be first party and say we comply to the standards, or you can go out into the marketplace and get a commercial laboratory to go and certify that you are. You know, that's what I mean. The standards are there as a voluntary code to guide you through.
It's Ben Bradshaw from ZF. A quick question. You mentioned SAE levels 4 and 5.
Yes.
Why not 3 as well?
I can ask that later if that's what you
I'll be honest, I don't know. So what I'll do is I will check and I'll give you an answer for the reason. I would defer to somebody that sits on our CAV strategy board that might have an answer.
Hi, so David Webb, Head of Innovation for CAV, so I'm the one that actually commissioned the BSI work. The reason we're avoiding level 3 is because it's just a bit of a grey area on who's responsible. So in the vehicle at the moment, if you've got ADAS, so adaptive cruise control, intelligent speed assist, anything like that, even if that's on and you're in a crash, you as the driver are still responsible. In level 4, we will be moving towards the case where, in certain scenarios, you would not be responsible. A high level 4 vehicle, the vehicle itself will be responsible for incident, and you are no longer the driver. There's still lots of legalese around that, and so that sits. But with level 3 and the assumption that the car can be locked, but you still have to, you can disengage, but need to be ready to re-engage. Just such a large grey area of what that means that we wanted to avoid it. So we've gone up to that level 4 where we can actually see a future where you as the driver won't be responsible for the vehicle there is an accident.
Thanks.